Alright everyone, we're back to see if we can finish up the layers for this machine here that was making the crystal stuff. So what I've done so far is I've just sort of copy-pasted this. I've sort of broken out, made space, and sort of set up the pathing for everything here to come up from layer by layer. I've also built out some extra train rails to start bringing everything in. Now I've left a few blank spots here because we're going to need to put new logic fields, new logic blocks into those. We're also going to need to edit the logic of several other pieces which have so far I've sort of just kind of broken out everywhere. I've sort of pulled out a wire wherever I've needed to make logic happen. Make new logic happen, I should say. So that's what we're going to start with, is to start with this top layer here. We actually don't need to change any logic here. Oh, is that an autosave? Not sure what's going on here. Anyway, let's double check here. I don't think we need to make any logic here. I think that wire might have just been, hey, pull this out, stop making the shape at all, because I wanted to do other stuff. Oh, here we go. We needed to do logic here in order to make things happen. So we need here, this is going to determine whether we stack onto the previous layer, if we have information coming from the last stuff. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do an AND check. Okay, so if we have the shape, we unstack it, we get the top layer of it here. Alright, so that's going to be the top layer. Oh, no, we don't want AND gate here, we want the XOR gate. Because if we XOR, we see, is there only one of these? If there's only one thing here, then we bypass the stacker, because that's our logic. We don't confirm the stack, we confirm the bypass. That's the way our logic has been set up. So, we can take this, and we can then just reconnect that, so we know that this is in place. Alright, this all didn't change here. This did change. So we did that. And now we need to check over here. So what we're going to change over here is we're going to see the full signal. So we're going to get the top of the stack, and now we need, and actually probably what we want to do here is just do this sort of thing. This will work fine, because now we can take this, and we need to essentially do this sort of logic here. And if any side is a crystal, instead of comparing against the color code, we want to do the same thing against if it's a crystal or not. So we can take this. You know what? We're not going to do it that way. We're going to just... Okay, so we're going to... Alright, so we're going to need to branch off and do an analyze. Okay, so we need to analyze this side. And then we're going to, again, do the equals here. We're just going to copy out this signal producer here. And then we can do our gate. Okay, so if this corner equals the circle, then we pass this out to go up. And then we should be able to simply replicate that with an additional rotator here. Right, is that the logic we want though? What's our display giving us here at the end? No. Okay, that's telling us, yes, there is a crystal. Okay, so I think our logic here may be a little off, because we want to confirm it if there is no crystal. So we want to send a 0 or a 1 here. So if it's a 1... Okay. Actually, no, leave that display there. Just jam that back in real fast. Okay. So we have the first layer. We check each corner. We check, is it a crystal? If it is... So if any of them are a crystal, we get the crystal. And that's an OR. So if, if any of these are a crystal, then it says the shape signal. So that's not what we want. It's not exactly what we're looking for. What we want is, so if we find any crystals, okay. Okay, I got this. Alright, I got it. So We don't want gates. We want to check, is this not equal to a crystal? Is this not equal a crystal? Does this not equal a crystal? Does this not equal a crystal? And then, and now here, we can do some extra and. Perfect. So what we're checking here is if we're comparing each corner, is it not equal to a crystal? So if this does not equal a crystal, and this does not equal a crystal, and this does not equal a crystal, and this does not equal a crystal, then it confirms that, hey, you need to bypass the crystallizer. So that is working. So that's what we're looking for here. Perfect. And now we have, yep, it's just checking the top one and moving in. So this logic is working here. Okay, so now let's take a copy of this up here, because this is going to need to change, because now we need to get the second and third layers instead of the top two. So we're taking the full shape here. We need to run another unstacker. Right, we need to run another unstacker. So let's set displays here. Okay, so we first need an unstacker to start with. So we shove the one off into the corner. So now we have the rest of it. And now we feed that into the unstacking and stacking check. So for example, if we had a 3-layer shape, this would be able to unstack layer 2 from 3 and then see that there are 2 things here, and if there are 2 things, no, that's an XOR gate. So if there's only one thing there, then that will bypass the stacker. Okay, great. So we have that. And now we need to copy this logic and adjust this to account for, and this needs to account for here, I think. We can do one of those. That gives us because that should give us a little more room if we need to start pulling down any further. So we have the first unstacker. So we need to check the top layer. We need to check the second layer function, the second layer of stuff. So we check the second layer. Well, a bunch of nulls. That kicks back a true. You know what? That's fine. That's good math. But we actually do need a second unstacker. Now I'm not sure which direction this is going to go offhand, but we will find out, and we'll flip that if we need to. Because we need to check only the second layer if it has crystals in it. Yes, that's what we're looking for. Does only the second layer have crystals? And now this here, we need to do something very similar. Again, we need to flip we need to get just the second layer. And once we have just the second layer, we can once we have just layer 2 here, we can then copy that same functionality to, hey, show me just layer 2. Okay, so that's pulling layer 1. Great. Now I don't know which order this is going to go in yet, but we know that that's doing its thing. And then we can take this and we can put that same code in here on this block. That's what we're looking for there. And that's a receiver, so I can take, let me see here, so I'm only using those channels here. You know what, let's just make a let's just find a multi-layer shape real fast. Here's a 4-layer shape. I'm gonna test that. Okay. So there are things on both sides there. Great. So I can take this and I can use that here. To parse out the proper information. Okay, so in this case, layer 1 comes off, the top layer, here comes the second layer coming out this way, perfect. Is this doing the same thing? This is doing the same bit here. Alright, so that is the proper orientation to get just layer 2 that I'm looking for. Yeah, I'm still just looking at layer 2 stuff. Okay, cool. So I know that that logic is working there. So now we need to look at this one. That is pulling just layer 2, the second layer down. Yep, it's just the square circle thing. Okay. Cool. So we know that so we verified that our unstacker logic is working as intended. So now we need to adjust it here to account for layer 3, or the second to bottom layer, so not quite the bottom layer. So let's slide this out, shove this in here. Okay, we immediately know we need to flip this and double check that. So we have the 3 here. So now we run another unstacker that pulls layer 2 off to the side. Nope, don't flip that. Flip it the other direction. So now we have layers 3 and 4 coming out. So we want to run another unstacker. Which gives us our bottom layer, in this case, is the star. Bottom layer is the star. Here's layer 3. So we can go ahead and... So we want this end here to get layer 3. So let's take this out, flip it. And we get that. We can remove that. We don't need it. And then we can reconnect here. And we can shove that in there. And now we can take this here. We're just going to shove that in the middle there for now. Because what we're going to do is we're going to delete all of that. And we're going to just copy paste this same logic from here. Fill it in there. Get rid of the old signal producer we don't need. Double check that we're using the proper logic here as well. So again, we know that the star is on the bottom, so we are processing layer 3. Just the way we need to be. So now we need to check the other pieces as well here. So we need to again pull this logic block up, pull this logic block up, and now we need to be parsing those with oh, nope, not that one. Don't delete that. There it is. And grabbed the wrong piece. Okay, so if I have that, we're getting, again, this is looking at layer 2. So we flip that, we're looking at layers 3 and 4. That's layer 4. We want to parse layer 3. Which is the blue diamond. Yep, so that's the blue diamond. That's what we're looking for. So we know that this logic is now looking at the right shape. And now we come back over here to this bit of logic, where again we need to check that we're looking at pieces. Let's see, so the top piece is off. So we need to be looking at layers 3 and 4, not layers 2 and then what's underneath. So we need another unsplitter. So we run a second unsplitter. To get the second out of here. Again, we know this display here. So now we need to take this, bring it down here, because now we're looking at layers 3 and 4. Again, it's an XOR gate, so if there's only one out of layers 3 and layer 4, then we bypass the stacker. And then this looks to confirm if all of our layer is not a crystal. If so, it bypasses the crystallizer entirely and shoves it along. Otherwise, if it's a crystallizer, one of these will end up being false, because these are not equal checks. I mean, we could have used ORs instead of AND gates, I guess. So if this equals a crystal, then we replace this, then we use an OR gate here. And if any of those are true, well, then we'd need to use a NOT gate, I guess, at the very end. Whatever. This logic is working. I'm not going to complain too much. You know, coulda, woulda, shoulda. We'll figure it out later. So anyway, we have this unstacker working here. So does this layer 3 need to go on top of, do we have something that's going to be coming in? If so, send it off to the stacker. And now down here, we can take this. Now we've done this logic here. So we need to check the bottom layer, and the easy way to do that is to remake our signal producer, get our shapecode again. We know the star is on the bottom, so we're looking at the star and parsing the star. So that's working as expected. So now we need to check, hey, what color's the crystallizer? Which means we slide this over a bit. Let's flip it so we're looking at the second there. So we're looking at layer 2. We run another unstacker. We just run the second unstacker here. So we shove layer 2 out that side. We have 3 and 4 coming out now. So now we have layers 3 and 4. We want to flip those, so we have layer 4 coming out the top. So we have layer 4 coming out the top end here. connect those wires back. Oh look, none of those are a crystal, so nothing gets through. That's fine. And then because it's not a crystal, it means, hey, bypass the stacker. Okay, great. So that is working here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same over here. I'm going to bring everything back over this way. There we go. I have to actually click into the game world and not onto the sidebar menu. So now we should be able to double check that. That is working. Well, now the fun part is now we know if we ever have something down this far, we don't need any of this. That can go, this can go. We can actually okay, so we need to cut out. Alright, so all of the belts on this corner, and then that last block up there. So that can go, all of this can go here. We'll just break all of that off. Bring this in here. That's fair. We need that. No, we need a belt here. Right, and so this will know. Right, so we did the crystallizer, we did the unstacking logic here. We can actually bring this closer by 1 again. So let's go ahead and do that. Because we know if this ever gets here to this 4th bit here, then we know it needs to get stacked, or we know it needs to go on, so we just send it along. And then these come in. These check if they need to stack on top of the last one. And they'll keep sending it on, and then eventually gets down here to the end and ships off into the vortex. Also, we need to get our unstacker logic built on each of these layers as well, because we have not done that yet. Now this one is the top layer. Pretty sure we know that this one already works. Yep, we know that works. Great. So that just ate a few little pieces of stuff, whatever, that's fine. You know what, actually let's just leave that running. Because we know this top layer is going to work, for the most part. Yep, this tells it bypass the stacker, and this tells it, hey, you need to go into the crystallizer, and all of this logic is still in place and working. So we know that that's set up and good to go. These are going to give us a bunch of nulls for now, that's fine, we don't care. But what we need to do is we need to get our check layer 2 unstacking logic put in place here. So let's go to the bits where we know we calculated it properly. Oh, that one doesn't count. This one counts. Wait, nope. Here's a little more compact version. Alright, now let's take this and run it all the way back. How far can we zoom out? Okay. Alright, so we know that this is going to shove layer 1 over the topmost layer, the bottom 2 layers, and then here is the appropriate layer for this, the layer 2. Now we're going to do same thing again. We're going to take this where we know the layer is already lined up. That's going to bug me to no end. Okay, so we didn't actually do any flipping or rotating, we just moved pieces apart. So this should give us just layer 3. That should, yeah, send layer 2 up there, 3 and then 4 here. So that should be good to go. Yes. And now again we need to come up here. For the uppermost, or the bottommost layer. That should work right there. Now what we need to do is we need to get, let's see here. So we've got red line trains coming in, bringing in colors and everything, shapes and colors. This should be green and green. We need to get a green train line set up here. We need to get a white train line set up here. And that's on this bottom level. We need green and white. Okay. So let's just take this. There we go. No interruptions. Nope. Delete you. Delete you. We want white and green. There. And that should grab a bunch of green trains and a bunch of white trains to go out and bring colors over to those other layers. Now at some point we will need to make some adjustments to this, because this is a bunch of there's a ton of stuff here. I just went ahead and just got rid of the where we built these originally. Hey there, how's it going, Satin? It's going well. We are... Like, I haven't actually tested full shapes yet. It's been going pretty well. We are getting close to pretty much calling this just complete. Because at that point, you know, soon enough, the only thing left to really do is just kind of more optimizing on things. Yep, there's the white line, there's the green line, those are all set up. Blue line, perfect. These are all set up. And let's... Okay, this is running. Okay, so this is running at this point. It's going to be bringing in... Let's see, what is it? What's our shape? Stars? Stars. It's just star pieces today. Or for this level anyway. Okay. So pieces are coming in. They are getting deleted over here? What? Uh-oh. Huh. Okay. Okay, so this is the northeast corner, this is the northwest corner. That should be pins, yes. And then the bottom half should be stars in each direction. Yes. Okay, so southeast is red. Yes, that should be working. What is happening here? Oh, that's getting the south half of the actual layer. What? Oh no. Oh no. I'm getting a monochrome signal out of this when I shouldn't be. Okay. Well. This. Okay, so we have a problem. We have found an issue. Great. This is good, though. This is good. We found an issue, which means we can correct it, and then we found it early, which is good. We found it early, which means we can then, you know, carry it through the rest of this. So what needs to happen here is this all just rebuilding, because it's just taking the shape. It's not taking in the color, which is a problem. Okay, so what this needs to do then... Huh, okay. Alright. So what we need to do then is we need to take the original shape code. Like, so if this is not a pin, or in this... Yeah, in the case that it's not a pin, we need to take it and do the proper recoloring against it, which means so we need to analyze it, and then do we need to... I think we need to analyze and then repaint afterward, or we need to send along Oh no, I've got it. So instead of just doing this comparison here, and sending along just the shape itself, we need to send off the colored shape, which means we need to send off the original... No, we need to do a... No, we need to run this essentially through a painter here at the end. So we need to take... How do we do this? Because we're not leaving ourselves room to do this. Okay, so we need to get the repainted signal back out. So we need to get the repainted corner. So we need to take... How do we get that then? Do we need to just change our logic back here? On the backside? We might need to just adjust this and then do unstacking, right? Okay, so if we do unstacking here, so how do we want to do this? Do we just do the old unstack stuff? I think that's what we might end up doing that. No, because these are already built. Let's just... Alright, so we're not adding that. Let's figure it out here. Let's figure it out here. So we are passing in... So we have plenty of space to expand upward if we need to. Potentially... So we only have 2 extra lanes on the side. You know what? T Foundation, you were cool for a while. You were cool while you lasted, T Foundation. Cool while you lasted, T Foundation, but I need more space. Okay. So now we have room to make things happen. So we need to expand it 1 here. Here, and then 1 here. Alright, so that puts everything back in order. And no, because that doesn't have the space I need here. And that's going to flip out because it's getting a bunch of mixed signals when it shouldn't be. Okay, great. So we can get rid of this. You know, that goes up here. No, I don't want those there. I want those properly in line here, right? Don't need that rotated again. Okay, so star, corner, uncolored star, red star. Okay, great. So this is working again as expected. So to get the recolored bit, we are going to bring this up here somewhere. And then this, that checks the corner shape. Alright, so we can break some of this out. And then bring this up here as well. And now we need a painter. Excellent. So now 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 here. Come up. Copy these bits here. Oh, I didn't copy those junctions properly. But now we have the part that without a crystal, that is now in place. Great. So now we can take this entire block here with all of this, and we rotate it. And then that clears that, and then this comes back down here. And again, we just delete that. Bring that down in here. Bring that in here. Slide these over a bit. Reconnect here and here. And that should give us all of the pieces we're looking for. That is channel 6, that is channel 7. Excellent. Now we see everything coming through on the stackers where they should be. And then coming in and stacking over here where they should be. And we properly see that these do not need to stack. These don't need to stack. So they bypass the stacker. And now they're coming in into the crystallizer because they have seen that they do not need to bypass the crystallizer. They need to get crystalled. So those are coming in. That's sending in white where it should be. Perfect. Alright. I think we may have done it. We just need to let this run for a little while and see what happens. There we go. Now we're seeing them. Let's check the other halves. There we go. The other half's rolling through now. Excellent. We should be seeing those start sliding in soon enough. Oh, there we go. There's our first ones way up here. 1,700 of those, huh? Fun stuff. Cool. Alright, so we know that that is now working. I guess we can come over here and try and start cleaning some of this up, maybe? It might be a while for this stuff to actually finish out. Because this is just a whole pile of nonsense about trying to get more things on the line to hopefully eventually get to here and start clearing these pieces out. Because these are like fully loaded here. I may need to just make an extraordinary amount of an extraordinary amount of trains to get them onto these rails over here and start clearing out everything. So, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to place 1 million more trains. Two more times. More trains than we have any real reason to have. There's no reason to have this many trains, but we're going to have this many anyway. It's going to be great. And this is done. Looks like that's still a 1-layer shape. Okay. No stacking for us just yet. And those are all still just going to keep on going and doing what they're doing for now. And then they all get trashed over here at the end. I could potentially, like, just cut this out of the way, and then bring this one even closer in. that might be a thing that happens. Just because it could be fun, right? I mean, this is sitting here doing absolutely nothing at the moment, but that's fine. We know the machine works. All it's gonna do is just make this number go up, which, you know, eventually we can figure out the logistics of getting those pieces in there. Okay. Yeah, we don't really have a trash here. I mean, I guess this trash is good enough. Otherwise, we'd have to run another trash here for this. And that's too much effort. Don't care. We'll let a bunch of stuff roll through. It's fine. Yeah, all of that logic, all of that paint is going through where it should. Also, we're going to be needing more of it. Okay, so now we're up here. We've got a bunch of stars still stuck from the last batch. That's fine. Alright, so it's just gonna be, yep, because this is the southeast corner here, so that's all pins. It's gonna get a bunch of stuff cleared out with this. Alright, but so far this is all working great. I mean, it's not super fast, because it's not, I mean, there's quite a few you know, areas where it could get, you know, kind of clogged up for a bit, but that's okay. It's working. It's just the nature of the system, it's going to do that. It's going to have a sort of, you know, slowdowns and, you know, kind of, you know, minor backups during the transition period. Yeah, but that works great. We get to, and we end up throwing the repainted shape back in. Right, and then this doesn't actually go through because, hey, look, it knows it's a pin, so it only sends the pin forward. Excellent. Yep. So that logic is working out very well for us. Bringing in circles, pins, and squares this time around. Let's see how far up we're getting so far here. There we go, we're getting a whole pile of stuff up in our stacker again to finish the layer. And there's a few dead pieces to get cleaned out, but that's okay. Those will get dropped out here. Oh, we're starting to get a few. There we go. They're going to go bypass the stacker here. And then land in here. Excellent. And now they're going to see, hey, look, that needs at least one crystal piece. There's at least one that's a crystal, so it ships it into the crystallizer block. Perfect. Alright, so what else is there now? Obviously, there's cleaning things up, getting this running at the same time, you know, making other milestone blocks go and be efficient. But at this point, I think we've sort of... we've sort of just kind of built everything at this point that we really need to build. So we've built all the stuff. It's a little shorter of a stream than I was expecting to. Because at this point we're just waiting to see if this ever gets multi-layers and you know, verify that our multi-layer logic is working. That's sort of the wait period now. I'm just kind of sitting and waiting anymore. Where is everything here? There it is. There we go, running all through that where it should be. Nice. Okay, yeah, that doesn't need anything, because that's not the right layer. There's so many other trains here. Oh man, this is great. There's a million trains in here, just all kind of stuck. Let's see here. Alright, there's no more of these. Excellent. Oh, still more shapes in those. Perfect. There we go, clean that up. This whole bit is cleaned up. Nice. Excellent. That's cleared out. This is cleared out. Okay, these aren't going to get anything else. Ooh, just in time. Perfect. And there are so many red ones, I don't know if I'm going to have time to get in there very easily. Hey, we cleaned up quite a few of those old blocks that we just aren't going to use. We aren't going to need to use. There we go. like just sort of cleaning those out. Right, at some point, you know, this could get cleaned up a little bit. So, I mean, this would probably be rebuilt, just bring in, you know, two train loads of squares, you know, a train of red, magenta, and then and then just one thing of white, because we could, because in theory this could be compressed a bit. Obviously these can be joined into this. This doesn't even need to be here. And let's see. Yeah, we wouldn't even actually need a second thing of. No, we would just need. We would just need a thing of pins. We wouldn't even need a second thing of squares. If we rebuild this. And we would just need we would just need to do a batch of pins somewhere. We get the squares, and then the red, magenta, and white. So that's 5 inputs instead of 1, 2, 3. What is it? We're using what? 2 things of white. A yellow, blue. So let's see, white, yellow, blue is 3, magenta is 4, red is 5, and 6, and then like 7, 8. We could cut out, a good chunk of that by refactoring this. I mean, none of this is even running here anymore, so we're just gonna break that down. And what we will do is we will do let's do a refactor on this. So all of this is reasonable. We do the squares, we split them up. Alright, so we pass in one of which is red, the other is magenta. And then we don't even do this here anymore. So we won't need this. Yeah, because we're refactoring this bit entirely here. So instead of... No, we don't need that. We don't need that stacker. We won't need that. So we have the 2 crystallizer blocks. And then we have this block here. Delete that chunk. Move this chunk down. And what rotator are we doing here? They're all running counterclockwise after this. Okay, so I can just take... this block. Just jam those counterclockwise rotators in there. That'll clean up that step. Then we don't need all of this. This is cleaned here, but we would take a stacker block Now, I'm not sure which. Right, because we would need to essentially let's see, how would that work? Because then we'd have essentially one batch of the crystals and then one batch of squares. Let's do some. Let's simulate that a little bit here. A couple signal producers here. Signal producer. And then swap, rotate, swap, rotate. Buildings. Swap, rotate, swap. One swapper there. Okay. Now if we oh, that's what we were using the trash blocks for at the end. Okay. Okay, that's what we were using those for. So maybe we did need that trash block. Regardless. Okay, so some of these are absolutely going to get mixed up unless we sort of compress this in here. Okay, yeah, because that's... yeah, that's absolutely... because we're going to get a bunch of mixed belts there. And in order to consolidate them, no, it's still just the one. Still just the one layer there. Alright, so I wanted the red in the top corner there. Although honestly, I think... yeah, who cares? It only needs to rotate once afterward, it doesn't matter which direction. Okay. So that works there. Yeah, because I'm thinking about building this as essentially just a very straightforward piece of it here. So I want to do combinations at this point here. So let's see. Okay, so we know where these go. Okay, so how many lines can we strip out here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so that rips 5 blocks out here. yeah. Yeah, go ahead and lift those bits with it. Okay. Now, can we do that again? Yeah, we can do that again. Because that lets us do this number here. And these are just loaded for a while. Okay. So let's see. Let's see how we can condense, see if we can compress this a little bit. Because this feels like it's taking too much room here. probably do this a simpler way here, so... Okay, so we know that everywhere that... So essentially, wherever the red one comes in is where there's going to be trash. So anywhere that... Here, so... That's trash, so is that, and that, and that. Okay. Yep. Alright, cool. So we can just come in, we can just put trash here, 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 and here. And then we can have on this tier Hey Mass, how's it going? Hey everybody who's joining in with them. Oh man, food sounds pretty good. I haven't had lunch yet either. I should probably do that at some point today. But it's all good. I know how that goes. Hope you had a good stream. Okay, so that cleans all of those out. Perfect. So now we can take all of this. Can flip that. Go, we send it like that. Good, everything's lined up. It's not jumping into the trash first chance it gets. There we go. Bring that in a little bit. Okay, if all of those are getting rotated that direction, then I should be able to delete that. And just flip which ones get rotated at the end. Like the blue ones here. Yep, perfect. That lined up just the way we wanted it to. All of that gets pulled in and compressed. Don't need that. And then that gets stacked, and that'll have pins come in and get crystallized. Nice. Excellent. So now if we were to compress this, don't need those, don't need those. This one here to come down like so. And then we would have a third one come in. And then this third one. All of this needs to just go. All of it gone. Deleted. All of that. Get out of here. It's not doing anything important. Nothing at all. Alright, great. So we would have the train of whatever color we want. Don't really care. And to load it would be 3 fluid wagons, there's a filler wagon there, and then 2 shapes. That's the train we're looking for so I can essentially just sort of copy paste this. Yeah, I could just copy paste this and have it sort of reusable there. Yeah, so we need to make sure that's red, magenta, white when we do copy paste that somewhere. Here, let's take that. We're just going to save that as a blueprint. Save as untitled for now. Because what we can do, we make a new folder. Milestones. Let's make a new milestones folder. And this is our untitled blueprint here. So that'll go into milestones. And we're going to call this one, let's grab, so in the milestones it's going to be milestone 6, hard milestone, or operator 6, save, and then to get the shape code, we want that shape code here. We can take that, add a custom code, alright. Hard, operator 6, cool. Alright, so that's good to know. We have that. That works. Don't need any of this here anymore. This is gone. That's gone. Delete all of that. Just clean that up. Oh man, I love it. These trains are just here the entire time, constantly. There is no stopping them. I love it. Ooh, okay. We need to get some more blue in. We've got a pretty much complete holdup on that at the moment. That's an issue. Alright, so we need to get some blue on this second rail here in the middle. Oh, we need more red trains to do that with. Okay. So here, we're just going to load in a bunch of red trains. There we go. Add in like 5 more red trains. 6 more, something like that. It's a lot of red trains. They'll get in there, they'll bring in all the blue. Which is fine, it's what we want them to do for now. Alright. Good stuff. So those are rolling in now. cool. So let's set a marker here. Just sort of, that's close to center screen, I guess. L to create a map marker. Cool. Cross number 1 with crystals. One with crystals in it. Excellent. Hey there, Tsuki. How's it going? There we go. Alright, cool. We're finally catching up on reloading this extra color here. Oh yeah, that's not a bad plan. That's what I did. I played Shapes 1 for a couple hours. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm enjoying this. I'm sure I'll enjoy the sequel. Lo and behold, here I am with 60 hours in this file of Shapes 2. I have another, I don't know, 12 or 13 or so in a separate save file I had. Just messing around to check it out before I started streaming it. Oh yeah, that's just how it goes. But if you have fun with it, that's really what matters. And I'm definitely having fun with this. We're pretty much done at this point, though. I mean, there's still things we can do. We can make these numbers go up. We can finish doing all of these. Not super worried about these, though. Crystals are something that's new to Shapes 2, was not in the original Shapes 1. And essentially what happens is, you take a shape. Here, I can kind of... Here, let's zoom in here to where it's actually working, and I can show you. So, for example, we have these shapes here, where there's sort of a gap here, or in this case, a pin. And what it does is it's similar to painting, but not exactly. I can kind of... Let's see if we can get a better look here. You can kind of see it. It sort of just makes a crystal appear wherever there's a gap or a pin. And crystals have special rules to them. Yeah, you convert fluid into an actual shape itself, yes. Now, crystals have special properties in that you're not allowed to stack them on top of other things, and you're not allowed to cut through a crystal itself. If you do either of those, the crystal will just break itself. It fills in gaps and pins, turns the fluid into a crystal, essentially a physical shape. You can do multiple crystals. You can crystallize and fill in extra gaps there. But if you drop a crystal, the crystal itself breaks and it disappears entirely. If you cut through a crystal, any crystal you've cut through, or that one that's connected to it, that also gets broken. Now, if you can cut along the seam, you're allowed to cut along the seam. That's entirely legitimate. And then there's some shenanigans you can do, which that's interesting. Personally, I haven't worked with any of that just yet. But it is a thing that can be done. But yeah, I've essentially set up a couple shape codes. Shape codes here. Not sure if it's in the knowledge panel here anywhere. Probably not. No, it's not in here. But essentially, every different shape has a specific code for it. Here, I can. Let's make a signal producer here, and then put a display on it here. Okay, so a shape code is any of C for circle, and then you have a color code along with it. U for uncolored, or you can have a rectangle, and that could be R for red, and then you can have a star. You can have, blue as the color. You can have a diamond shape, or windmill, as it was originally called in Shapes 1. That could be, for example, green. So we can see we've got a circle, we've got a red rectangle, we've got a blue star, we've got a green wedge or diamond. And then we can, if we want to see other ones, we can show off. So how do you notate a different layer, a stack? With the shape code, you put a colon, and then you start typing the code for the next piece. So for in this case, we can go ahead and let's show. So we'll stick with here. Let's have a pin. Pins are never colored. They only ever have a dash. They're not allowed to have anything else. But we could have, another circle. It could be cyan for the color, so we get a C. And then the rectangle could be magenta. The star could be yellow. And then we can add in on top, we can have, here, let's have a crystal that is white. And then we fill in the rest of the shape with a bunch of dashes to blank it out. And we can kind of see how that looks. So we've added a pin under there, under the crystal there. Now this shape code, crystals are notated with a lowercase c as the shape code, as the shape itself. And then they follow whatever color convention, whatever color you want. But C, lowercase c as the shape, and then the color, in this case, W for white. Or, CR for red, CM for magenta, CY for yellow crystal, and you can see how that's got the extra colors on there now. Color mixing. Oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. Just delete those, please. Thank you. Color mixing. So, obviously here I have a bunch of pre-mixed colors. I don't do mixing here. I don't do my mixing on site. I do it off site. Right now it's all over here. But over here we have paint coming in. We run it through pipes. And then because there's pipes instead of belts to transport fluids, and then you run it into a mixer. The mixer takes, the same volume of each different color you're putting into it, mixes it up, spits out the whole volume of a mixed color. So in this case, 60 blue, 60 green, 120 cyan. And it's, similar here. Red and blue makes magenta. Red and green makes yellow because it's additive coloring. And then we can come in here. If we mix in a secondary color like yellow or magenta with the missing primary color, the one that was not used to make it, you mix those together and you make white. And it preserves the same volume, so 60 of one, 60 of the other, 120 out. So, for instance, here to make white, normally, so if I have, if I bring in essentially two lanes of a color, I can do, there's different color modes. There are different color modes. Here, let's go to the settings. Color mode, we've got RGB, we got red, yellow, blue. So you can see now that we've changed out the colors. So instead of red, green, and blue, we have our red, yellow, and blue. So we have yellow and blue makes green, red and blue still makes purple, or magenta, and then red and now yellow make orange. And that's just a setting you can change anytime you want. I mean, heck, they've even got CMYK mode. So you start bringing in cyan and magenta by default. You mix them together, it makes blue. You've got cyan and yellow, mix them together to make green. Yellow and magenta makes red. You mix them all together, you end up with black instead of white at the end. And I believe our YB also ends up with black as the final color. Yeah. Yeah, you can just change the color scheme anytime you want. It's just a setting. And then if there's any sort of color blindness, they add little textures into the different colors. So for example, yellow's got, and we can see it better here. So red has like horizontal or vertical lines coming through it, and then green has little squares in it. But if we look at that, we see the combined form yellow, it actually takes on both the vertical lines and the little squares. And then blue has like angled lines across it, and when we see white on the other side, it actually has the angled lines, the square, the little dots, and the vertical lines. And you can see that with any of the other color combinations as well. So magenta, it's just the angled lines and straight lines. And then, over here, you've got the angled lines and then the dots on green. So if there's any sort of color blindness, you can see that to check that out. Personally, I like just sticking with RGB. It's nice and easy. Just different gameplay settings here. Just how good does it look? How much power does it take? Auto, hotkey settings. There's a lot of different bits and pieces you can hotkey. Navigation. There's some soundtrack settings here. Obviously, the default music for the game. If you buy the supporter edition, it's an extra few bucks. You get another. It doubles the amount of music that's in the base game. And then if you have Shapez 1 on Steam, you just get the Shapez 1 soundtrack in this game. But otherwise, just kind of, your general functionality settings that are in the game. Yes, there is wiring. Shapez 1 also had wires. It is a bit later into the game, but yes, there is wiring. So for example, I'm using a bunch of wiring here. So what this does here, this is a wire receiver. This receives a signal. It can be any signal. There is transmitters as well. So if I was transmitting a signal on the red channel, I could have a receiver over anywhere I want, and it could receive that channel there, and it passes along a signal. And then there's different simulated buildings that we can use. So we can rotate a signal. So if it's a shape signal, we rotate it. We can destroy half of it. So here we'll just start with a signal producer here. And we'll just give it, one of our shapes here. Yeah, that's sort of how they work. So for example, we've got this signal here. We can take it, we can rotate it, and if we display what's on the other side of it, we see, hey look, the shape got rotated. So what the receivers and stuff are for, because the wires take up physical space. Obviously, if you're trying to move multiple shapes across platforms, for example, like you need to have one of your things, you need to be able to physically, use senders and receivers across here. But these only work across a single platform. But the global receivers, and here's a global transmitter, you assign it a channel. So this gets a shape signal, it does a bunch of logic here, and sends it out on this channel, and it goes all the way up here. Or all the way over here. And you can have a bunch of different receivers on the same channel to do stuff with. But yeah, you can simulate different functionality with it. Essentially, you manipulate them just the same way you do the regular buildings themselves. And there's even variable types. I mean, there's different buildings. We have stacking. We can stack two different shapes on top of themselves. We can actually unstack shapes in order to manipulate and check each different layer, which is really kind of necessary for a make anything automated, for any sort of automated machine. You can simulate a painter. You send in the shape code on this side, send in a color code on this side, so just color -R, for example, and then we put a display on the other side. Bam, we colored this circle corner here, we colored it red. We can run it through a crystal generator instead. So if we ran this through a crystal generator, you can see how the red crystal fills in every gap that's made on the same layer instead of the circle. Oh, other than that, we have logic gates. There's all sorts of gates. We have AND gates, OR gates, NOT gates, XOR, exclusive OR gates, which, so an AND gate works. So if both inputs here are true, or if they're on, it spits out a 1. So if I have a signal producer here, which is a null, and then I have this one, which, sure, we'll put that here. That returns a 0, a false. We have the logic gates. We have the gate as well, which we use here in a few places. There's buttons, so you can toggle a signal, or essentially it turns the signal, produces a signal on or off. We have belt readers, which let us read the contents of a belt. I'm actually using one down here in this corner here. And you can see here it's telling me it's supposed to be running at like 103 shapes a minute or something like that. Not quite sure what that number actually stands for. I don't use it too much. Gates are just, circuit nodes, I guess. So we have the gates. So the way this works is whatever signal is coming in on this end, if this side is a, hey, this is on, and then it spits out whatever comes out, whatever spits, it lets either this through or it doesn't let it through. Now, I don't know too much about, like, circuitry and, logic gates with wiring and stuff like that, personally. This is not something I really know how to do in my normal day. I know how to write words, if X, then Y. I had to write that. I know how to write that, in programming language, in a code. But, when it comes to wiring in this game, I've sort of just kind of figured it out based on what the tools are, and sort of just, tried to figure out, like this. This eluded me for quite some time, but eventually I figured it out. I figured out how to send, send this shape, send this signal or send, otherwise send this other signal instead. But now that I've figured that out, I've been able to apply it into pieces that are a little more intricate. Yeah. Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I write software, but I don't, so like hardware stuff is all outside of my wheelhouse. We have belt filters here. We can pass in either a shape code, and it specifically sends that shape off to the side or lets it through, or we can pass it a 1 or a 0 or a null. There's pipe gates, which work similarly. You pass in a color code, and it pass in a color code or a null or a 1, and it turns either, and it, lets the fluid through, or it stops it from going through. And you can see that I've done fluid gates over here. I've got fluid gates over here. So right now these are all, these are all getting a color signal of blue, and that's passing it around. Red obviously is not blue, green is not blue, blue is blue, so it goes through. The other ones do not, obviously simple there. Yeah, Little Big Planet, I never played that one. Never really got into it. Wasn't my kind of thing. But yeah, there's quite a bit of pieces here. We can do a lot of stuff. Now, I've seen people, building all kinds of weird things that, oh, that's just the same thing, I guess. Or I sent those in earlier. Not sure what that is about. Other than wiring, I mean, there's, shape processing. We've got different sorts of, obviously belts, different rotators. We can cut the west half of a shape off. We can split the two halves of a shape. We can swap halves of a shape. We can stack them. Different kinds of stackers. Obviously extractors to get shapes out of... We have extractors to get shapes out of these asteroids. We've got pin pushing. So we can make pins pop up underneath a different shape. Obviously fluid interactions. We have pipes to carry the fluids, pumps to get the fluids out of the extractors, painters. You get to send in. You can pass in fluid on one side, shape on the belt, goes through. Color mixing. You've seen that. Crystal generation. It's a very large building there. Fluid tanks, you can use them to just kind of store fluid, but honestly this is probably one of the most, I think this is one of the most useless tools in this game at the moment. It doesn't really do anything because we have these train unloaders, shape unloaders, fluid unloaders, because we can batch things instead of having them travel along belts. Instead of having everything move along a belt, we can load it into a package and send that on a train, so we have a lot more stuff moving a lot faster. And these already here just sort of act as a buffer, as a tank, so we don't really need, I don't think fluid tanks are really super required. Also, part of the supporter edition are just fun little bits. You can send a train on a little loop-de-loop, or like a corkscrew. And then at some point there's also actual just labels you can put down on your platforms. You can go ahead and type whatever. To empty a train into the vortex? Yes, there is. One of the upgrades. So one of the upgrades you get is a train vortex delivery. You get to launch a train just directly into the vortex. So whatever it's carrying goes right on in. And you can sort of see that down here. I've got some trains over here. This train's bringing in a couple pieces of stuff here. And the train is just, eventually it's going to come up here. It's going to hit this launcher, and it's going to land straight into the vortex. And whatever it was carrying is going to get directly added into these totals here. So this 250k, this 502, you see them, they just shot up because I just jumped a whole train in. Yeah, just like that. You see the train, it just goes right on in. Whatever it's carrying gets added to your totals. You don't have to send them in, you know, on little tiny belts, only a little bit at a time. Oh hey, and we finally have a two-layer shape. Awesome. So now we can make sure that this second layer functionality is working as it should be. And so far, it does look like it is. Yeah, once the game opens up, the game starts you off. See, like, these little asteroid belts here? These all start off as connected directly to your vortex platform, and this is all, you know, essentially wide open space here. And so the tutorial starts you off. You're like, oh, well, drag shapes from, you know, drag shapes from here into the vortex. You know, drag squares from here into the vortex. You know, now, you know, cut your squares and circles and stack them together, mix them up, and then throw them into the vortex. So you have all this room in here. And then eventually you unlock space platforms. So that's what we've got here. So essentially you get to zoom out, and we've got, you know, these platforms here. We can drop down wherever we want. And so over time, it starts you off with, you know, pieces here and there, and then adds more pieces, gives you more complex shapes. Eventually you unlock trains, colors, you know, color mixing. Those are on separate times. You know, you learn about painting first, and then you learn about color mixing later, and then eventually crystals at the very end. You get some more complex pieces. Alright, so let's double check up in here real quick. Alright, and we are seeing that this second layer needs to have white crystals on it. So, yep, that's getting the white crystal signal. It's telling it, yep, go on in. Alright, those are coming out. Those are coming out crystallized. And then these ones are going in to get crystallized. And then these are going to take a long belt ride all the way back over here, where these here, alright, so this here is waiting. It says, yeah, this needs to go into a stacker. Save platforms for repeated use? Absolutely. You just highlight it. Once you have blueprints, you can just Control S, it goes into your blueprint library. So all of these are all essentially platforms and configurations of platforms that I have built and saved. So this, you know, here's a fluid miner, brings out fluids, you know, in a nice full stack, you know, the most that I can bring out of one piece. You know, and different painter options, you know, so I have a bunch of mixers. So I have a, you know, I just have a mixing platform. It takes in the 2 on the left, spits out 2 on the right. You know, and then I have buildings like this that are just, you know, a single tool of just, hey, everything that comes in, rotate it 180 degrees. And then, you know, other platforms that are a bit more complex, you know, maybe not as complex, but it's generally, you know, one function. You know, I have a bunch of those that are just kind of one function blocks. Some of them are a little more intricate. Like, you know, this one obviously just cuts things. and then you can save them with whatever names you want. And these are just files. Yeah, you can make it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can design something and then reuse it wherever you want. Yeah, these are just files. Like, you save it, it's just a file on your computer. Let me see if I can. So just open the blueprint library folder on your hard drive. I'm going to click that, and then what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and see if I can add another add a window capture. And test is going to be, yeah. Alright. You may be able to see that here on my screen now. But yeah, that's just, so here's all the folders. Everything's named. It's sorted out, same sorting method, same folder hierarchy. And then it's just this, one of these blueprint files, Shapez2BP. So you can pass these around. You can. Toolbar.json? I don't know. I haven't actually looked into the actual contents of these. I just know they work. Oh yeah, toolbar.json. That is just a list of, because you can actually put, you can drag and drop, these folders onto your onto your bar. So down in here, when you hit the blueprints tab, you can just click through and see all of your different blueprints. So you have quick access to them down here if you want to use keybinds real quick. So I can just, hey look, and this gives me the eastern half of something. But then if I want, a checkerboard swapper or something like that, I just have that blueprint on hand. But yeah, that's all that's in the toolbar.json there. Oh, window is still covering everything. It sure is. Whoops. Not anymore. It's gone now. Yeah, blueprint toolbar here. We can kind of just go through stuff. Use these here. We don't have to open up the whole library. And you get nice little previews of how they work. Oh, here's an old one. It's a little old baby stacker. Before I unlocked the power of the third floor to move things around with. Alright, there we go. We know that's working now. Excellent. We didn't really look too closely at it. You unlock the third floor as one of your upgrades. You buy it from here, from this upgrade list. Now, to buy things from these lists, here in the tasks, you can see the tasks have research points. The more complicated the task, the more points it's worth. And with enough points, you buy upgrades over here. So all of these in here, you upgrade, all your belt speed, the speed of your cutters, your stackers. Upgrade how fast your painters paint. How fast the trains go, how much you can store on a train, unlock your tools, cutter, swapper, trash, bigger, more unique platforms, unlock the wire bits, fluid tanks are there, you unlock different train colors, so you can have, more trains on the same rail. For example, here we've got all of the trains, 4 colors of train running on this same rail. Insane or hexagonal when you first start the game. I personally, all right, yeah. And so one thing to note, for example, here, the scenario is different from the difficulty itself. So I'm not sure where exactly the difficulty gets set. I know that's a thing we can do somewhere. But the scenario, like normal, hard, insane, hexagonal, that determines what your milestone requirements, the shapes you need to deliver for milestones, and your tasks. Those are the only things affected by what difficulty or scenario you're playing. But otherwise, the upgrades you get are all the same. Yeah. So I'm playing on hard mode on the hard scenario, so my shapes are more complex than what's on normal. I can show that off here. I can just go ahead. We'll save this for the moment. So let's take a quick look here at some of the operator shapes. So for this first milestone here, after space platforms, we've got this sort of thing here. That's our shape there. But if I were to back to menu, takes a minute to load here, but that's okay. Now I do have an old save file that is on just normal here. Oh, here's where we can change the settings. Yeah, and then untitled, and then over here, if I just load into this real quick. And if we look at the milestones here, the milestone for this here is just a blue square with a red circle on top. So if we go and we look at the custom scenarios, alright, custom difficulties. Yeah, I mean, the ones in normal get, they do get a little more complex than just, red circle on blue square. But, that's just kind of starting you off. You don't really need to do that. So if we go in here, so the difficulty is different than the scenario itself. So we can see the scenario: factory, normal, hard, insane. The difficulty changes your copy, how much it costs, how many blueprint points it costs to copy and paste, what's your platform limit. So on challenge you have a lower limit of platform units, so you can't build as many platforms or space belts to move things around. So you have to be, work out how to be a little more efficient, and you need to do more. You need to turn in more stuff. And custom difficulties, how many shapes you need to deliver to complete milestones and side tasks. I mean, you can crank that all the way up to 1,000%, or as little as 0, I guess, 10%. Anywhere up to 1,000. Platform limits. You can have unlimited platforms. You can adjust. Anywhere up. You can be like, oh, well, I have only 10% of the normal platform limit, but you can crank your blueprint. Copy paste to cost. You can crank that all the way up, make it free. Those are the settings there for doing that there. But yeah, insane gives you more complex shapes. I can I could probably start up a new game here and kind of show off what some of those look like. And then the actual custom game. You can change your settings here. You can see kind of what these look like. These are pretty intricate here. I mean, you can change all sorts of things. Whether you're allowed to split conveyor belts. You can only build 1x1 foundations. Like, these are wild. You can't trash. You know, no trashing, no, you know, you have to use the bent stacker. You know, map generation, like, look at all of this. This is tons of stuff. There's a ton of settings in here. Like, this is wild how much stuff is in here. Like, I've only looked just sort of basically just kind of like at, you know, what it looks like. Also, you can just check seeds. Like, so you can just check numbers and see what it looks like. And just you know, you just see what different seed numbers look like and what's where. Now, in every game, you're going to have a few basic shapes that are in the starting, like, sector. Oh yeah, you can just enable... You can spawn it, you know, you can spawn... So you can have different... Just like, oh look, you can just have purple spawning naturally, so you can just extract it, you don't have to mix it. White just occurs naturally, you don't have to mix it. You know, you can see that all throughout here, you know, yellow, cyan, purple, magenta, white, you know. You just spawn everything if you want. You can crank up how likely it is to make colors. You can crank up how big they are if you want. You know, sure. You make them huge. You know? How likely is it? You know, what sizes? I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff. Like, it's crazy. I mean, it takes forever to generate, but... Yeah, let's get back into get the default settings here, because I don't think there's like a default button here. Yeah, patch likeliness. I mean, pretty much guarantee there's everything anywhere you want. You know, so you can say, you know, patch likeliness is, you know, more than one, you know, asteroid can spawn in a sector. So we have, you know, just one here, and you know, so you have one shape and one color in each little square block on the map. You can change how big they get, you know, how likely they are to grow as you get further and further out. Since we can see here down in the little starting sector, they're pretty small. But as we go further out now, you can see them growing larger and larger. Yeah, so if we set both of these to 200, you're going to see that in pretty much every, you know, in most sectors here, you're going to see things, you know, you're going to see, you know, probably, if we refresh and double check that, as we get further out, you can see some of them may have two. These aren't showing... Okay, there it goes. Oh, that's weird. You need to actually be at 210. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, you can see, like you said, so you have two patches of each in each little quadrant sector there. You know, shape asteroids can have a colorfulness rating, which is, you know, how likely it is that all parts of the shape are colored. You know, how many rare shapes are spawned compared to normal stuff, how many diamonds are compared. Set colorfulness to 0. Well, then you're probably not going to find, you're most likely not going to find any colored shapes anywhere. You're not going to find things that are pre-colored. It's all going to be uncolored to start with. Jump back to the vortex. Now, obviously those settings here, they don't affect what's in here, because these are required for milestones before you get painting and mixing. No, it wouldn't soft lock you at all. No, because the base sector always has a few bits that are pre-colored, no matter what you do. No matter what settings you change, there's bits that are always pre-colored. So there's always, you know, there's always a circle that's, you know, got 3 parts of it red and 1 part of it not colored. There's always one that, you know, a circle that's got the reverse, where only one part of it's colored. And then there's this shape here where it's got a blue square, a green star tip, and then a red quarter circle. You turn up rare and very rare, and we're going to see more bits that have the wedges or the diamonds, along with stars. We're going to see a lot more of those throughout the setup here. Normally those are fairly rare to come by, but if we crank it all the way up to 100, well, it looks like that's all we find. It almost looks like that's all we find. Yeah, and it looks like the diamonds override the potential of stars to show up. Yeah, oops all diamonds. Yeah. So if you oops all diamonds, then the only circles you have are right here. These are the only circles you get, and the only star pieces you get are right here. If you do it that way, it's very interesting. It would be an interesting. It's a lot of, how likely it is that you get a full, that the shapes are colored. How likely it is each shape is colored with whatever type of, color you're looking at. So if we look at this, minimum distance 32. Maybe we find eventually. Maybe eventually we find. A shape that's got, that's fully pre-colored white or something like that. Doesn't seem to be showing up here in this generator too easily, but I'm sure that's what it's for. Primary colors, uncolored. I don't think you can change the actual, what components make the shape. That doesn't seem to be something we can change. Yeah, it doesn't look like we can really change that too often. The actual, what make up the components of a shape. I think I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that may be true, But I was looking here at this, this color bits here. That's something. That's something a little different there. So I'm not sure how many. How this confirms what sector, what the distance is on this to make sure it looks right. We can see, the shapes are, more weirdly mixed, harder to find pure shapes as further you go out and stuff. So there is absolutely a ton of settings. So you can build, you can essentially build whatever you want as a custom game. It's crazy. I just played on just, some random seed with a basic, just a basic map generation. Didn't play with any of that. Oh yeah, it's really cool. Even if I never actually use this, the fact that it's here, absolutely fantastic. Lets people do whatever, do more shenanigans, have more fun their own way, pretty much. Especially with, checking, changing these, how hard, what's it take to copy paste? Is it free copy paste? Do you have to pay a bunch of points for it? Because in challenge mode, hexagonal get extra rotators? No. Hexagonal has a simple change where currently the 90-degree rotator in the standard quadrant scenarios, it functions as a 60-degree rotator So it'll rotate it 1 bit clockwise or 1 bit counterclockwise, or it'll rotate it a full 180 degrees if you use the 180 degree rotator. No, you do not get a 120 degree rotator. You have to chain two 60 degree rotators in order to rotate 120 degrees. Now one thing to note, here, I'll just boot up this other one here because it'll probably load a little faster. But one thing, hexagonal does sound pretty interesting. But one thing to note, for example, here, let's just show these off here. Alright, so if we do this, so we've got these rotated now. The vortex doesn't actually care about the rotation, the orientation of your final shape. Normally. There is a bug, however. There is a bug where these random shapes, these do have an orientation matters. The orientation of them does apply, but, you know, for any other shape, so if it wants this shape here, you know, with the pointy bit, you know, the square bit sticking up to the top right, you can ship it in any order you want. So I can, you know, I can flip it around entirely. So it goes the other way. And it's still gonna work. Yeah, the rotations, I mean, yeah, they don't matter. It's great. Because if they did matter, then you'd have your camera spun this direction and go, wait a second, this is right. Why isn't this working? You know, if I'm looking south and it looks correct, why is the vortex not incrementing my counter here? Because, oh, well, you're supposed to look north. Well, no, you don't have to look north. You can have your camera rotated any direction you want. You know? Now, personally, I just keep it rotated north because that's the way I work. That's the way I do it. You can, you know, toggle the visibility of the floors above you. Like this, you know, this save file doesn't even have the 3rd floor unlocked yet. You know, it's still got all of, you know, it's got a bunch of different rotators and stuff. Doesn't have the 3rd floor, doesn't have bigger space foundations. I did unlock all the wires for some reason. Not really sure what I was doing with this save file, just kind of doing stuff. But yeah, there's little side tasks that give you the research points, obviously. You know, these are fairly simple because it's only on a normal save file. Oh, I've seen people do some pretty wild stuff with wires. So in my other save file, I have essentially a series of unstackers, and I guess I can kind of show that off here. So if we just have a signal producer here, and then we have a series of unstackers. You know, one of the things I've seen people make is here, we'll just so if we put in a shape code here and we put some displays up, so we can see there's only one layer and it's coming out here. We unstack and we show the one layer of it. But if we were to add a rectangle, you know, add a square on top of it, you can see the circle then comes down here, then comes down here. But I've seen, you know, and if you add a 3rd layer, everything shifts down again. Like, I've seen people build it so that no matter what, you know, this wire down here is just going to be, you know, this one down here is always going to be what's on the very bottom, even if it's only a 1-layer shape. So I've seen stuff like that. There are people who are building, there's at least one person I know who's been working for several months on on a true make anything machine, because these shapes here, there is an algorithm to these shapes. They're fairly simple, but there are things that there are functions that are much more complex, that you can do with crystals and maneuvering them with swappers and cutters and stuff like that. That this milestone here, this is not going to, you're never going to be asked to do that with this. But, you know, in order to be like, hey, you can just send a shapecode at a machine and see if it can make it, you know, with a true make anything machine, that, I mean, there's people who are working on that. It's, I mean, their code, you know, their code, so to speak, you know, looks absolutely wild. And personally, it's, you know, I don't think I'm ever going to go into that. I've had my fun. I've sort of built everything. Yeah, there are some limitations as to building like full functioning computers. You know, with wires, like people have made like storage pieces and stuff like that. I've seen people make like, you know, small basic adding machines. You know. But yeah, I mean, so there's all kinds of complex stuff you can build with these. There are some limitations, and just that wires are not like super instantaneous and fast and, you know, instantly calculated. There is like a, you know, there is a limit to how often like they update or propagate their signals down the line. Now for, you know, a basic machine that I'm running, it works fine. It works great. But the more complexity you add onto it, you know, like if you're trying to like make something add together, you know, or count, like if you're trying to use wires to, you know, count how many shapes have moved through a given section of a belt, then I mean that may or may not work, just due to the limitations that wires have right now. I mean, this is still just in early access, and they are going to be making updates to wires and their functionality. Oh yeah, it's still definitely really cool, for sure. I mean, I would say, you know, I'd recommend this game if you enjoyed Shapes 1 at all. I'd absolutely recommend this. 'Cause I mean, you know, I've got, you know, a 13-hour playtime here. You know, and it's it's only this far in. It's only just got trains. Hasn't even unlocked pins or color mixing yet. But then in the other save file, I've got, you know, 60 hours. So this is absolutely worth it. Yeah, the new features are really cool. I like them. I didn't play much of Shapes 1. I played for, you know, all of, you know, an hour and a half in Shapes 1. But I played enough to know that I'm like, alright, I dig this kind of game. You know, I just kind of take a shape, you know, take a bit from this, you know, take a bit from over here, do a little piece, you know, chop it up, rotate it, spin it around, stack it onto another bit. You know, hey look, I made a shape and sent it into a thing, and I got a number that went up. You know, I enjoy that. So I was like, alright, well, you know, Shapes 2, it must be even better, right? And so far, it's absolutely been better. You know, all the actual, like, just building things is, feels way more responsive and intuitive, with the way belts, like, just the way they connect and snap to each other has been great. Yeah, hexagonal mode, I mean, I can fire up a hexagonal, you know, take a quick look at it. Yeah, but like, you know, like laying down belts and how they work. And in 1, I mean, you had to have like a special balancer or splitter object, or like a balancer or a splitter or a merger like object. But you don't need that in this game. The belts just work that way. You know, we're just gonna, you know, start this up here flip the seed a couple times. Not that it matters, because I don't know what any of that is. Yeah, we have to sign up here a bit. Also, in this game, you can drop anchors, and you can build your belts, you know, whatever willy-nilly way you want to make them. Well, yeah. Okay, so what do we need? Oh, we need halves, huh? Okay, well all we have is a cutter. Okay, so we need... Okay, so 4... Now that's probably too many, but all the options for hexagons, I mean other than just you're processing a different shape and your rotator only rotates 60 degrees at a time. I mean, other than that, everything is pretty much the same. Oh yeah, we can look around. We got some little flower looking bits here. We got gears over here. And then we have that standard hexagon shape that we've got over here. Standard just generic triangles. And I think that's about it. This one's got... oh, here's a bit. It's got kind of a little bit of all three of them. And I think that's it. There's only 3 base, like, hectant, I guess is hextant would be the proper terminology for that. There's only the 3. There's the like the arrows, the gear shapes. No, there isn't. There actually is not. There is just the 3 base, like the base pieces for hexagons, whereas the standard, you know, quadrant versions, those are all, you know, those have the 4 different shape codes, the 4 different shape codes you can work with. Hexagon only has 3, but you're working with 6 different corners, and it's essentially 6 corners instead of 4. So things are more complex because of that. And we can kind of see some of these milestones. We can look at them. Oh, that's just a basic old milestone. That's not going to be much of anything. And if we look here, you know, it's not too bad. You know, you got to figure out how to cut apart and then put back together the, you know, that stuff there. But then the real ones start rolling in. That looks like just the old one with a little... an extra little layer to it. What do we got here? That's pretty nifty looking. Milestone here. Part of a gear, you know, then the regular hexagons kind of merge them, and then it'll, you know, just a yellow hexagon on top. You got this put together with a... Alright. What's the crystal one look like? Oh, that's not too terrible, actually. That one's actually pretty simple. Crystals in hexagon mode, here's what they look like. You know. They're just not circular. They're more of this, this basic hexagonal... your basic hexagonal, portion. Whereas in the quadrant mode, they're just like a circle. Some of the tasks here. We can go through some of the tasks because these get pretty nifty here. Looks like this one's fairly simple. I mean, you obviously, once you cut out the other pieces, you have the one shape, then you can kind of rotate it twice and then stack it to get the pieces there. How do you get rid of pins? So if you have a pin in a shape, the pin is there. The only way to get rid of a pin is to turn it into a crystal. So if I ran this through a crystallizer, all of this blank space over here, these pins, and then the blank space up here, that would all turn, this blank space, these pins over here, everything would turn into a crystal. And you can kind of see that here. So you've got these pins down here. You turn it into a crystal. And then that one wants you to do a full thing. So what's this one look like? It just starts with that. Then you add in that bit there. Then it adds in another layer on top that becomes a crystal. Yeah, so if you want a crystal, so you have to drop. So if you want to get rid of a crystal, yeah, you just drop whatever has the crystal. You just try and stack it on something else, and the crystal just explodes and disappears forever. Or you can try and cut through the crystal using a swapper, or even just a half destroyer. Would be able to break the would break a crystal. Okay, yeah, that that's kind of what this is looking here. It's kind of how this works. At the moment, it starts off pretty slow. But those upgrades, they definitely let you go quite a bit faster. Yeah, and you can see here, Hexagon mode's a little different. They've got colored pieces directly attached to the starting platform even, which is nifty. Yeah, so essentially, in the normal game, instead of starting with a circle over here, I'll circle over there, and then squares up here and down here, it gives you that. In Insane, and we can go take a look at those real quick. They are quite complex. No, don't continue. Oh no, push the wrong button. Back to menu. Oh no worries. Don't feel bad about asking questions. Oh, it didn't even save that hex. Neato. Yeah, if we wanted to go on Insane, let me take a quick look at some of those. Alright, so in the normal, because this is still the quadrant stuff, I had already done because these are all the starting bits here, just kind of teach you the tutorial of the game. But now in Hex mode, or in Insane, our milestones start off here with one of these. So we've got, 4 of this, square and circle mix. Some of them are colored, some of them colored the opposite direction. And we move on here, we learn about painting. So we have some green bits. We have like a little shield kind of thing, and then some spiky bits. You know, we're trying to make and put together there. And then once we have, well, trains, so it's still just kind of red, blue, green stuff. But, you know, 3 different shapes, 2 different colors on each layer. You know, so mixing all those together, then color mixing itself. I mean, also a factor of insane mode is there's a 5th layer for shapes instead of just 4 like in the others. So you can have 5 layers of shapes stacked on each other. You know. And we add in pins, we start getting some more. You know, we get those. Those are neat little bits. Alright, what's the crystals look like? Because here's the fun part. Is now you have to figure out how to get all of these crystals on each other without breaking them. So you've got multiple layers of crystal, multiple colors of crystal on each layer. You know, gaps between the crystals. So there's gaps between the crystals and stuff. So trying to figure out how to do that, definitely more complex. Right, you can't just make a crystal and then stack it because it's broken. So you have to do swaps. So like you have to use the swapper to line things up properly in order to get the crystals, you know, by themselves with gaps around them, you know, on the proper layers and stuff. So it is that is definitely going to be a feat, you know, and quite a bit of, you know, figuring things out in order to make that happen. You know, so we see that these are what, you know, and so the milestones kind of build up. Well, the milestones kind of build up to these big things. Like, it doesn't ask you to make this right out of the gate. It's going to ask you, hey, build this shape to start with. Also build this other shape over here. And then it kind of increases the difficulty a little bit. Like this one has a bunch of, you know, a bunch of gray pieces here, but we've got these, you know, we've got these bits here with the crystals and the colors. And then you can kind of see where those pieces, you know, aren't there anymore, but there's other pieces in their place, you know, sort of like from the other side kind of thing. So like these two lines, like they kind of like evolve over time. And for example, like this one here, if we look at this one, that's, you know, it's not too bad. You know, this isn't too bad either. You know, we expanded a little bit. Here's another shape on it. There's another shape on this one. And now it combines the 2 different pieces of your milestone. You know, parts of your 2 different milestones get put together in order to make this final one. So they kind of build off, the 2 pieces of milestone kind of build into one another. They kind of build up as things goes on. Yeah, you would create a crystal, then you stack of pins on top of it, and then how do pin pushers work? So what a pin pusher does, well, it's not going to show it here, but if you run we'll have to go back. Essentially what a pin pusher does is it pushes pins underneath the shape. So everything moves up a layer. So if we go into, if we just go back into here, because I know we have pins over here, I can kind of show that off a little bit. Because if we look in here, you know, in my make anything processor, like I have pins as just like their own shape, but that's not how they start off. let's see, over here. Okay, so here's some, yeah, so here's what we're doing here. And so we kind of see this here. If we see this shape, we've just got a basic star, but then after it goes to the pin pusher, there's pins underneath it. There's just pins underneath that. And that's how pin pushers kind of start off. You can continually just pin things over and over again. So if I wanted to, I could take we can kind of see here, we can kind of look at this. You can see it pushes the pin once, the pins come up a second time. So how do we extract the pins themselves? That's where the way pins work. So a pin pusher, so we can kind of see here. So what we're doing with the pins, alright, so we have a second shape over here that we're building out here. So we can see we have like a half shape here. If you pin push a partial shape, then what happens is only the half of it that's got only whatever is there gets pin pushed. So you don't put pin, it won't generate pins underneath something that doesn't exist. So here, you know, we've pushed something. This is at the absolute limit of its layer. This can't go any, you can't stack anything on top of this or it'll just disappear. So what happens is we send that, and this goes all the way through over here. And so for example, we have these pinned, we have these stars that got pinned once, and then we stack. So then we stack over here. If we stack them together, you kind of see here that the pinned stars try to land on top of this, but this is already 4 layers. So the shape, the star itself, disappears, and the pins that are underneath it fall down because their pins will just fall. There's no, you know, they're not actually connected to anything. But you see how we have the pins down on the side here, and then we're taking that into another routine here where we're just running it through a half destroyer. We're just destroying the half that doesn't have, you know, the pins by themselves. And then we're taking these pins over here. You know, we've already done the same, so we've already done this over here. It's the same process that happens over here. But in the end, we take these, the ones, you know, and we just rotate half of them. So these are now from the, instead of the east half, they're on the west half. And then we just use stackers to just go, oh hey, you know, stack these 2 shapes together. You know, we could use swappers or something here, but in the end, we get just 4 pins on a layer by themselves. And then we can ship those off as their own shape and just process them as if they were any other shape. So that's a thing that, you know, this is only one method. This is one way of generating pins by themselves. Another way is fairly similar, and I can kind of show that off here. I could, you know, you can use the crystallizer. You can use crystals to do something similar. For example, if you try to So if you make a shape that is a full crystal, we kind of look at, for example, what they're doing, like what they do here. Like you generate crystals like this, and then you do a shape swap, and you get a crystal by itself. If you pin push that crystal, then the crystal goes up a layer, and there's pins underneath it. But then if you try and cut through the crystal breaks, which will then leave just pins underneath it. So if I just take some open space around here, I could just kind of, here, we're just going to break this. I can just show that off kind of with wires a little bit. It's a little simpler here. So if we just have, some half shape. So if we have half shape here, and then we run it through so if we pin push it, we can see we've got the circle with pins underneath it. And then once we do that, or no, we don't put pins underneath it yet. What we do is we just run that through a crystallizer. And then we have another signal producer here, and this will just make so that makes a red half crystal here. And then so if we do the same thing here, and then we go ahead and so if we we need the rotator. So if we rotate this, and now we can do a swap. And if we swap it, we can see we have the shape and then the crystal by itself here. So let's make a little more room. And now we can take this, we can run this through a pin pusher. We can see what that looks like now. We can see it's smaller because it's been pushed up a layer. And now if we try and now if we take these and we run them through a swapper, if we just run the same shape through the swapper, so because we have the pins underneath, if we try and swap it, it's going to cut through the crystal, and then it leaves just the pins underneath at the bottom. So that's a second way of generating pins just by themselves, is to do some crystallization. To unjam a belt without deleting it, I mean, you can manually go in, you can press, there's a hotkey, default key is I, it just deletes whatever is in the selected section. But then, again, eventually, shapes will continue to move from where they're at to then just fill that back up and keep going along. Now, if you're talking about, like if you have, for example, we have this signal here, we're just going to branch this off and just kind of do some other logic here. But if we were to use, for example, a cutter instead of a swapper, so imagine we had two outputs here, just remove the backed up ones. I mean, yeah, you just highlight it, you press the I key, and it erases all the shapes that were on your selection there. And then they all start, filtering in back from wherever they're done. So there's this quick little hotkey that does that to just clear out any shapes that you're looking at a given time. Otherwise, you can set up different you can use various wires and bits here. Like this is just a convoluted mess, but essentially what this is doing is it's wiring a bunch of stuff and sending it into a trash pile. It does actually. In order to saturate a belt, so if we're looking here at a cutter, buildings per full belt, we need 4. So this number here that I'm hovering over now, that's how many I need with my current upgrades. But if I have an equal number of upgrades between the belts, and if I have an equal number of upgrades between belts and cutting, then I will need 4. But if these, but if I had, so it does tell you, it's a nice, very simple, straightforward number. Hey, you need 4 of this, as opposed to, well, your belt moves at, 3.7 per second, and your cutter cuts at, 0.25 per second. This just tells you you need 4 of these. It does that math for you. It's very simple and straightforward, very obvious what you need to do. As opposed to trying to figure out, oh, well, I need to use, well, if my cutter goes at 0.2 per second, and my stacker runs at 0.45 per second, and my belt runs at 0.87 per second, how many do I need of each building? Like that, you don't need to do that math anymore. The game just tells you how many you need. I mean, heck, you only need 1 belt to move a fully saturated belt per se. So that does show up there from time to time, which is kind of silly looking, but that's how it goes. But yeah, stackers, the bench stacker, you need 4 bench stackers to output a full belt of a fully saturated belt. Whereas if I was using a, for example, a straight stacker, where they both come in on the same side, they go out the same direction, these require 6 of them in order to generate a full belt. Yeah, so you can be more efficient with bent stackers. So if I just have a platform, so if I just have this platform here, so if I wanted to make, 6 stackers, this is pretty much your footprint, is this right here. But if you have bench stackers, like over here, but you can have bent stackers and, that's your footprint for the same full belt. So that cut, that's, that's 20%, that's a 30%. It's 1/3, so it's 33% savings or something like that, in how much space it takes. Because bench stackers are faster, you only need 4 per belt. Straight stackers are slower, and you need 6. So, so there's that. But yeah, so, different configurations of belts here, half destroyers, you need 3 for a full belt. Cutters, you need to send it, 1 belt into 4 cutters in order to generate a fully saturated belt. So there's, there's different bits. And then if you get into fluids and painting, well, then you get fluid, fluid volume is much different than much different than actual like belt volume. So like a fluid launcher launches at 1800 liters a minute. Yeah, there's no half destroyers in Shape 1. Yeah, you only have the you know what this game calls, you know, the cutters or the full cutter. You know, this is all you have in Shapes 1. You don't have just this nice little half destroyer here. You have to, you know, you have to build it, you know, build a half destroyer yourself in Shapes 1. But yeah, I mean, you know, stuff like, you know, the addition of this half destroyer. I mean, that's a nice, you know, new addition and evolution of what was in, you know, of what was in Shapes 1. Oh yeah, merging is pretty rough. You know, you have to have, you know, you have your belts. You know, in Shapes 1, you know, in Shapes 1 you've got your belts, and then you need your, then you need then you need your balancers. You know, you need your balancers, or eventually you get like, so you have that, or or this is a splitter, to do stuff. Then you're stacking this, stacking stuff like that, and it looks, absolutely goofy. Yeah, and then your balancers don't work around corners, but then eventually they, eventually in Shapes 1 you get, eventually you'll get a compact splitter, which lets you bring in one and then it splits off to the one side, or the merger, compact merger, I think it's called, where you can, you have a line going and then you drop a merger down and then it brings in, and then they line up and go out the same direction. Or or a splitter version that does the same thing. It comes in one, it's only a 1x1 that does it instead, and it goes off to the side. But yeah, in this game we don't need that. We just branch off. We can see that here. It's just part of belts. Bam, it merges in. It's very nice. Now in Shapes 2 here we have, we can have 4-way intersections where there is essentially one input and 3 outputs, or we can have 3 inputs and 1 output, but you cannot have, so we cannot have 2 inputs with 2 outputs. That's one thing we're not allowed to have with the belts, which is fine. Doesn't bother me any. I'm not sure why we would really need that, but that is a thing. Oh, those are good to go. Is this running? How's this running? Is this waiting for pieces here? What is this? What is this? What the heck? Did that break? Oh. Interesting. Okay. I think there may be... Oh, yep. That definitely broke. Okay, cool. So that... How do you trash something on floor 2 or floor 3? you have to bring it down to floor 1. You can't just run something off of the edge. You have to actually find a way to maneuver it down to that floor 1 where the trash is. You can't just send it and just drop it off the edge. You have to actually maneuver it there. You have to figure out how to make it happen. Okay. Yeah, it's still fairly compact. Yeah, to bring it down a floor. I mean, it only takes one, one thing, one tile space essentially to change a floor, and you get one input direction and one output direction on the bottom. You can even, so you can fold it back in on itself. You can have it go the same direction. You can have it go off to the side if you wanted. So you can have it, go up. You can have it go up and then back go off to the side. Back down here. You can do all sorts of fancy maneuvering with putting belts and laying belts and going up and down floors. You can go straight up to floor 3. Now the visuals for that one are still a work in progress. They don't have the little lift arms like the other bits do. But that's fine. I mean, it's early access. Like all the wire, like these, the visuals for these are kind of work in progress still too. But yeah, it's fairly compact. It's pretty nice. It does look like I need to make some updates here because this doesn't handle gaps. Oh man, that's good. And all that building I was doing, it's still not completely done. This needs to learn how to handle a gap, huh? Okay then. Probably the way I want to handle that is just right up here with... Huh. Huh, interesting. That'll be a time. I think that'll be something I get to at some other point. But for now, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with this game. I've hit, so it kind of hit the wall of where there's not much more. There's not really much like that I want to do. I mean, I could, make the factories for these different shapes here. I can make them, better, more compact. I could, right now I'm doing very little of them over here. I could make this more efficient because right now this is only using 2 layers worth of stuff. So I'm only getting 2/3 of what I could be doing for this one. So I could, rebuild this with the proper 3 layers in mind. I could make more of them. I could expand it. This I'm sure could be. Again, this again. There's only 2 floors of that. I could be making a 3rd floor. Again, to fit a stacker design into a 1x1, it is possible. I have seen people put up blueprints where they have done it. But personally, it is a lot of intricate and convoluted belt launchers and belt weaving that I do not have the spatial processing power in order to do that, personally. If I sat down and tried it for, and just worked on that for just several hours, I probably could come up with something. But I don't find it worth it. So belt weaving is, Now this here is the one blueprint that I have that I did not make myself. I did not make this one myself. Because crystallizers are big and bulky, and they take a lot of space and weird maneuvering to make them work. So here's it's fairly dense here, but there's an example of belt weaving here. So for example, here on the top floor, we have where it comes in at, it does a launcher, and the launcher clears across 4 spaces and then lands with another catcher. But we have here in the middle, we have another launcher in each one, and that stems from this second floor here, and then also from the bottom floor here, where this comes up, and then it comes up again here. So we have, 3 belts, jumping and landing and jumping and landing, before they finally start splitting up. And then they're still here, so if one of them branches off here, and then you still have 2 of them jumping and landing until they finally split off again. So it's definitely doable. It looks very, very neat when you have everything just kind of jumping and landing across each other. But yeah, so you can essentially have, 3 different belts, maneuvering in the same space as just a single belt, would normally take. But that is doable by some people. And it does look pretty cool. I have a trimmed down version of that in the actual, I have a trimmed down version of that here. I sort of just took whatever was on that platform, I copied it onto here, and then I just started coming in and I just started cutting out pieces that weren't actually going to get used for this routine, because I cut it in half. So I took out half of the crystallizers and the supporting belts and pipes that got the fluids and shapes into those. I just left the other pieces because I thought it looked neat, and I didn't feel like trying to untangle it myself. But yeah, definitely works. Yeah, extending multi-floor designs horizontally. Yeah, that's and in Shapes 1, there's a couple of different types of tunnels. I believe there's 2 tiers of tunnels, and you can do something similar by alternating which tunnels are being used at a time, and so you can kind of weave those together as well. So it is a thing that can be done. Personally, it's a bit outside my processing capacity. It's a little too much for me personally. But if it works and people can get it done, they get it done. I'm not averse to using other people's designs when I just couldn't figure it out myself. and the ability to just share a blueprint file. Oh yeah, it's great. You could just slam belts together. You can just split belts apart. No extra unlock functionality needed. It's just there. It's really nice. Definitely good stuff. Yeah, that's so this second tier is working fine. Yeah, this second bit is working great. That's doing everything it should be. But it's that first layer having a gap. I was not expecting gaps on the top layer. So I really only need to handle that here on the top layer. The big icons when I'm zoomed out, So obviously there's the asteroid belts here, but then here these shifting colors here, the red, the diamond, the star, those are showing me what's on those are the contents that the train currently has on them, that the train is currently carrying. So you can see it's got all these colors and all these shapes on it. And if I zoom out, it rotates through all of those and shows me what's on that train, which is really nice, really nifty. Yes, the way train cars work, these loaders here, they get loaded on the first floor because the space belts also have 3 floors. So like these platforms here, the platforms have 3 floors. The space belts have 3 floors. The train loaders have 3 floors. So if you can put something in on the first floor of a space belt, it'll go into a train loader. On the first floor. You could have something entirely different on the second floor. You could have something entirely different again on the third floor. But for the purposes of, this machine and this functionality, I simply use the same thing across all 3 floors. But you can absolutely mix things onto different, so you can have, instead of, red, green, and blue here on all of the same thing, you could have, if you really wanted, you could have one thing that could have red on one floor, green on the next floor, and then blue on the third floor. And then the train would come by and it would have, again, it has 3 floors. It has a slot for 3 different floors. So it could carry a red, a green, and a blue in the same train car. And yeah, and just training multiple cars behind each other. Absolutely. For trains, you build the locomotive itself. Hey, this is the train that's going to carry stuff. And then you put wagons on it. You can carry 3 shapes. You can carry a bunch of fluid. You have filler wagons to just space things out. And so trains can have as many wagons as you want. You can just make the train itself be as long as you want it to be, and it will carry stuff in every car that it possibly can. And the trains along the bottom, yes. So instead of the trains, so what happens is the trains travel across the top, and then they reach the end of a line. So they'll reach the end of a line, and then they'll go back along the bottom. They'll go back to where they started from. So we can see that it just goes on the bottom. So that way we don't need to have, a full, closed loop. So you don't need a train to do, one of these. You can have the train just do this, and the train will go this way. Oh, it reached the end of the line. Oh, go back the other way. So you only need, half of the track that you might normally think, that you would think, a train in real life would need, because it's in space, You can use the bottom side of a rail, and it just loops around to it just loops back around up to the top when it gets to the other end. In the supporter edition, what you get in the supporter edition, you get the Shapez 2 extended soundtrack, another, 10 more tracks, 40 more minutes worth of music, and you get the train decorations for the roller coaster, the twisters and the loops. That is it. That is all you get in the supporter edition. There's no mechanical gameplay functionality locked behind the supporter edition. It's just cosmetic stuff. Yes, it is all cosmetic stuff. You don't need it for anything. It's only there if you want it because you think it looks cool, and or you want to support the developers by giving them a little extra money. Yes, you can upgrade to it later, It is available as a separate purchase as DLC on Steam. So you don't need to buy it all in one go. Depending on the way the pricing works out, it may be a penny or two cheaper if you buy it separately or if you buy it combined. I don't know. No, it will not go away after early access. It is there. It is there and it will stay there. How does this handle gaps already? I'm not sure. I'm just thinking to myself now, like, that's interesting. How does this already handle gaps? I mean, it absolutely, like, handles gaps to go make things over here, but then doesn't seem like this is... because this is all backing up here. Oh no, because that's backed up, because that is just absolutely... that's just getting a null signal to begin with. Okay. Huh. Huh, that'll be interesting to figure out. I may get back to that and fix that. Or I may not, I may just call that here. But I think, overall, I have enjoyed my 60 and a half hours of this playthrough here, this hard mode scenario. And it's been another 3.5 hours today, so started at 57 when I came in this afternoon, but it is 4:30 my time, so it's about time for me to start getting dinner. So I'm going to make floor. Yeah, my stack is to make a floor and then stack. I make each layer separately and then stack it underneath the next layer, because that's generally how that's pretty much how the algorithm works for these shapes here. Well, the gap is not a problem. No, it's true. You're like, logically, the gap is not an issue. The gap's not an issue logically. The issue comes in with the way I built this logic functionality here, because because I needed to make adjustments to be able to understand, hey, am I getting a crystal in a certain quadrant? If so, I replace it with a pin. So for example, here, this quadrant here is a pin. This quadrant here is a crystal, or one of them is a crystal, somewhere along the way. Yeah, here. So you see the bottom half of this shape is a crystal. The number, the 121, that is my operator level. That shows how many times I've fulfilled a batch of submitting, some number of milestone shapes. It adds together all the times you've done it for milestones, all the times you've done it for the random operator shapes. That's what that 121 is. So it's just a number that keeps going up as you deliver more shapes. It's pretty much there as just a measure of how long you've played the game, so to speak. It's just a matter of how long you've played it. But the gap, going back to the gaps issue, is in order to make the shape selecting process work, I need to essentially turn this where it shows like, hey, here's crystals, because a crystal is not a shape itself. I need to replace that with pins. So in the end, I do some essentially some if checking. Does this corner equal a crystal? If so, send a pin instead of the crystal, and then rebuild this layer of shapes with pins instead of crystals. Okay, so stacking the crystals with all of this. So once all of this happens, so essentially this says, hey, for this layer, build, these two squares with pins here instead of a crystal. And then after that, it builds all of that. And then it checks to see, do I need to stack, onto the previous layer before it goes into the crystallizer. So it builds the layer without crystals, with pins instead of crystals, and then it makes crystals on those layers. And then the shapes come down, they come in onto the next level, they come in up here, and then this goes, oh well, and because of the way I've built this, if there's something here, I need it to go into a stacker. So it just goes into the stacking block here. And then if I need crystals on the top layer, I stack the top layer without crystals, but with pins instead of crystals. I stack it on top, and then I send it into the crystal machine, where it will then perform the regular crystallization. No, feeding a crystal into the bottom of a stacker does not destroy it. It's when you drop the crystal underneath. It's when you drop the crystal on top with a stacker that the crystal breaks and becomes a problem. Well, a gap becomes a problem when it's under the crystal. With the way crystallization works, I can kind of show it off here a little bit. Here, let me use this. Let me just kind of show it off with signal producers here. So if I have a crystal, if I have a shape here that looks like so if I have a shape that kind of looks like one of those here, let's get a proper display on that so it looks easier to see. So if we have a crystal, so if we have a gap in the top right corner of the second layer and the bottom left of the first layer, and we put that through a crystal generator with, for example, here we'll make it red, and then we have a display on the other side. So if you just run something through a crystallizer, every gap and every pin on the entire shape, no matter what layer they are on, get filled in with crystal. Right, I mean, yeah, it could be made, yes. I'm sure there's another method to make that. Using various swaps and whatnot. However, that is not required. That functionality is not required for these random shapes. So the algorithm that generates these does not have, multiple colors of crystal on the same layer, does not have it does not have a gap underneath a crystal. So this machine is this machine is only built to handle this shape per the algorithm. So it's only ever going to have a gap on the top, which I wasn't expecting it to have. I wasn't expecting it to have any gaps at all. I was expecting it to just have crystals. But it turns out it could have a gap on the top layer possibly, so I need to do something to handle that, which is, something I'll look into at some other time. So when you stack So when you stack things, so things will only fall if they are not. So if for here's an example here. If both shapes are whole, they end up on top of one another. But if they're full of so for example here are loose, so this green half circle is not supported by anything on the bottom layer, so the whole thing falls and makes a thing here. Yeah, shapes can support themselves horizontally, but not diagonally. So for example, in this example here, the one corner of this red circle falls down into the bottom layer. So there is that. So if I had a 3/4 circle, and a 3/4 square, if I stacked the 3/4 square on top of the 3/4 circle, I would get this. This is a legal shape that the game could ask for and could make me build in any milestone, task, or random operator shape. This is a completely legal shape because this 3/4 square is supported by the other horizontal connections on that same layer, so this corner will not drop down if you stack it like this, if you were to stack it that way. But yeah, as for generating a crystal with a gap underneath it, there are ways to do that, yes. I personally have not done much in the way of trying to do any of that. Because again, I've been playing this game, this save file for over 60 hours. I'm just at my personal, I've had my fun, I've had my enjoyment. I've built things, they're pretty great. It's not perfect. This could be better. I mean, there's bits in here where, this whole thing right here, I'm sure I could do better logic and make it happen. This is quite messy. I've seen it done where it's much cleaner looking, but it works. I'm happy with it. It's good enough for me. At this point, the extra platform shapes, they're useful for whatever you want them to be useful for. You start off with just the little 1x1s and 1x2s, and so that's largely what I build on because that's good enough. But there's bigger ones like this L shape. I mean, the L shape's useful for this. If I have a stack, if I have a block that takes inputs from, it's useful in this kind of thing where I have 2 lanes of stuff coming in, but I want to conjoin them here on the inside. It's useful, that's pretty useful there. The 2x2 can be useful for, it could be useful if you have, things coming in from the sides and you just need big space to make it happen. And if you just need, a lot of space to make it happen, you can use a 2x2. This has applications. You could have, I've seen this used as part of a platform that mixes white. You have red coming in one side, red coming in here, green coming in here, blue coming in here, and then it does a bunch of mixing and whatnot, and then it spits out white in 3 different from 3 corners here. It's useful for that. So there are plenty of things, and then this is just, here is a giant platform. I hope, you probably have space to do whatever it is you want to do on this big platform. So that's what I've done here. Because this gives me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inputs to generate 1 output, if I really need to. And in this case, I can feed in 7 different colors and then 1 input of a shape and run, logic to determine which of the colors I actually used. Yes, the Vortex is a 3x3 platform that has the hole in the middle of it, and it's way over here. I'm a genius. But yeah, this is a 3x3 platform, and it has the vortex in the middle of it. So I mean, every platform, every foundation has its uses. It's a matter of figuring out what works for you, what works for the platforms, the building, you know, the functionality you want to put together, you know. So I mean, with this, I could use this, I could probably build this with smaller platforms, but it may be messier to actually do, you know. But for now, like, this works great. The fourth tab in the main menu mode, this one here, this is for just random decorations and stuff. Right now, the only decoration is a label. So you can put in any alphabetical text to describe whatever it is you want the label to describe. But yeah, I'm sure there's more decorations planned, but for now, we have labels. You slap a label down, you know. This is a label, it says things, you know. You just tell it whatever you want it to say. And that's the extent of a label. Like, you know, you can put, I mean, you can spin them around. You can put them on upper floors, you know. I mean, it's a label. It's what it does. It doesn't do anything functionally other than just display text. So I'm sure that'll be expanded at some point eventually. Alright guys, I really gotta go. I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna call it here. We're gonna save this in case I come back to this at some point. Hope y'all have a good one. I will see y'all around.